Vamos chamar
Vamos
o
lá.
Josh na China?
Vamos.
Então, com a gente, pessoal, Josh Walker, cofundador e presidente do Sports Innovation Lab. Ele vai fazer uma apresentação para a gente sobre o report deles. Hi, Josh, how are you?
You guys didn't tell me I was following Rodrigo. I mean, that energy is unbelievable.
Oh, yes. Right. You're right.
Yes,
Yeah, and I
yes.
can see it in Portuguese in the comments. Que energia. Hey.
Yeah.
Yes. Josh, good to see you again.
It's good to
a
see you.
pleasure to have you here with us. I will leave some plastina. Oh, you're gonna.
Okay, I just reintroduce Josh to our audience. We are running 10 minutes late, so I won't make some announcements I had, but I will strongly recommend you guys to surf on Sports Innovation Lab website, follow their social media platforms, but not only download their content, but also review their portfolio, their services. They have a lot of to do with us in our market as well to lead us to a new pathway of development. Josh, glad to have you here. The stage is all yours for your data-driven sponsorship presentation.
Okay, thank you guys. It's good to see you both again, and thank you for having Sports Innovation Lab and me. You've been very gracious to us over the last few presentations, so it's very nice to be with the group again. This time, I'm presenting to all of you on a topic that we call data-driven sponsorship. And while I am not bilingual and I didn't understand a lot of the presentations that came before me, I could tell that the creative and the advertising and the marketing was very sponsor driven, and it had a lot of content in it that will be relevant to this conversation. So I hope it helps as I go through this. So the first thing I want to do is I want to make an argument to you all that this world that we live in sports sponsorship is changing. And it's changing largely because a lot of digital companies are coming into this space. And the most notable ones everybody talks about, of course, is Amazon, Facebook, Google, and others. They're the global platforms that can buy media rights. They can activate large sponsorship campaigns. They can work on multi-year partnerships. They have the resources to do that. So with those companies sort of looming, they're out there, they're changing the landscape. A lot of the traditional sponsors that you work with, the food companies, the airlines, the retailers, they all are going to have to compete in a new way. So I want to give you some advice. I want to give you some tools to think about how you compete with your sponsorship dollars in a digital world. And to do that, I want you all to focus on one thing, and that's data. And I know that data means a lot of things to a lot of different people, but what it really means in the context of sponsorship is that fan behavior is changing because of technology. And if you don't know who your fans are now, if you struggle to understand who's watching now, if you struggle to know who's buying your products because of sponsorship now, if you're struggling to know how to measure sponsorship because you're just getting the number of followers or the number of likes or the number of engagements, then you truly don't know what it is that fans want and what they want to do more of. And we believe that data, collecting data directly from your fans, is the path forward. And we believe this is going to happen. So whether you want to do this or not, the entire industry is moving in this direction, right? A lot of people who talk about digital coming into sports talk about disruption. So I want to walk through a bunch of different groups: sports properties, athletes, some of these sponsors that are coming into sport for the first time, new endemics, agencies, and traditional brands. And I want to walk you through why they are going to change sponsorship. And you then can believe what I'm saying or you can discount what I'm saying. But the goal here is to help you get a sense of whether or not sponsorship is changing, whether or not you believe this guy from the Sports Innovation Lab or not. But the reality is that you have sports properties right now who are looking at media ratings and viewership to sell sponsors, right? They want to say, look at how many people tuned into our soccer match. Look at how many people tuned into our volleyball match. Look at how many people tuned into our fencing competition. But a lot of advertisers want more than that. They want more than ratings. They want more than viewership because they know that the consumers are moving into different platforms. They're sometimes watching it on an OTT platform on a mobile application. They're sometimes watching on a second screen. They're sometimes at the event. So viewership is actually a fragmented measurement. And you need to, as a sports property, be able to tell a much bigger picture, especially for some of these media properties where traditional linear broadcast ratings are going down. Athletes are also changing the sponsorship landscape. They used to do a lot of endorsement work and meet and greets and show up to, really endorse the products that sponsor them. But now they have platforms like Instagram, Cameo, they can use TikTok, and they use those platforms now so that they don't have to get in a car, get on a plane, go somewhere, and they can reach their audience at scale. And the more that athletes figure out that they can do that themselves and sell products themselves, they will either say no to sponsorship because it doesn't help them sell their own products, or they will use these platforms to reach more consumers than they possibly could by going around and meeting their fans in person. New endemics is a term that in the US, some agencies use to describe the fact that there is now new categories that could be bought as exclusivity. So when you look at how technology is moving into sport, you see people saying, I'm the official augmented reality partner, or I'm the official cloud partner. And some of those categories didn't exist before. So buying exclusivity to a thing like cloud doesn't really mean anything to a fan unless you're using the cloud or some new technology to make it different, make the fan experience different, make the sport new. And so the traditional way of just buying category exclusivity, I'm the official beverage partner of, Real Madrid, is very different when it comes to a technology company who wants to say, we're the official cloud partner that allows fans to do this. And I'll give you some examples in a minute of what I mean by that. Agencies, of course, need to use technology and change sponsorship too. They can't just continue to send street teams and groups of young people out to hand out samples of products. They need to show the ROI. They need digital measurement and data to say this is how many samples we handed out, this is how many samples led to in-store visits, and this is how many in-store visits led to purchases. So being able to use some of the agency work to drive that attribution back to the campaign is what most sponsors are under pressure to do. And finally, traditional brands. You have traditional brands who use sport, as we all know, to do the hospitality, the luxury boxes, get access to the locker rooms and the sidelines. Well, that's all still very important, but they also want to be able to access things that are behind the scenes or unique when they're not at the venue. So how do traditional brands go from doing the hospitality driven stuff at the stadium, at the venue, at the arena, to doing things online when they can't be there? And how do you scale those things to make them feel special to fans that would never be able to visit the arena because they live too far away? So these are the pressures that are really forcing sponsorship to move more digital and collect more data on the fan experience. And what we do with our clients and what we recommend is that we move toward a opportunity to have multi-year platform sponsorships. But when we tell our clients that, we do it with a very strong sense of reality, which is not every property can do that, not every brand can do that, and certainly not every agency is going to be able to work with a Google or an Intel or Verizon or a large, technology company that can do multi-year deals. So we have really focused on three different types of sponsorships that all have data in them. The first is what we call an association sponsorship. And the association sponsorship does think a little bit about the fan behavior, but it doesn't really rely on technology, and it really doesn't collect that much data beyond what you traditionally collect when you measure impressions, consideration, some of those traditional sponsorship metrics. We believe these will continue, and there's nothing wrong with them, but most of the sponsorship dollars should move to activation sponsorships, where you're actually using some of that money that you would use for an association sponsorship to collect data. And I'll give you some examples of how you would do that in a minute. But what we're really saying is if you're going to spend millions of dollars at an event, at least understand what the consumers at the event are doing and at least gather some information from them. And then finally, we have platform sponsorships. And platform sponsorships really do focus again on what the behavior of the fan is. They rely on technology and they have a long tail to them. Multi-years, they can really start to measure what fans are doing over time. These three sponsorship models differ in when they happen. Most of the sponsorships in association and activation sponsorship focus on game time. They're really about kickoff, halftime, after the game, maybe a little bit of the post-game show, but they really focus on that 3-hour block where most of the attention is. What we believe is happening is these platform models really expand before and after the game so that you can have activation windows and conversations with fans that really span beyond game time. And that's a mindset. That's a way of changing the way that you operate and thinking so that you can apply your assets the way that really optimize the return that you want to get when it comes to learning about your fan. And so I'm going to give you a few examples, then we'll open it up for questions. But one of the things that's really important here is understanding that, again, not all of you can do this, but I wanted to give you something that you could sink your teeth into and understand what we mean by a platform sponsorship. A platform sponsorship is really demonstrated well with what Major League Baseball and Google are doing with the film room. The film room is a collection of video archives that Major League Baseball and Google put together in this area called the film room, which is available online. First of all, Google benefits because it shows the power of the cloud. So it's not just Google Cloud sponsoring Major League Baseball, it's Google Cloud sponsoring an experience that fans never had before when it comes to searching the video archives, creating highlights, and then making their own personal highlight reels. Now, some of you may remember that they did this for the World Cup, and this has been something that's been done before as an activation, but this is a product that Major League Baseball has and will probably continue to invest in because it's an experience they want to have to collect information about what their fans like, what their fans are registering to do, and giving their fans more opportunities to create video in the cloud on the internet. And the stickier this becomes, the more engaging this is for fans, the more types of products and features they can enter into this. And then they're continuing a relationship with the sports fan beyond the games and beyond game day. The other one that you'll see a lot is you'll see powered by AWS pretty much everywhere now because AWS, Google, Microsoft, Intel, they're all competing to be the cloud, and IBM, the cloud providers for technology that's going to give you advanced analytics, next gen stats, you name it. It's a very simple use case and it doesn't stretch your imagination that much. But what it does is it shows you how they want to be integrated into the broadcast. They want to be integrated into that fan experience in a way that shows the game, shows the match in a new way. And so Bundesliga is powered by AWS. NFL has a relationship with AWS. There's a lot of different examples you can see where these big, large technology companies are here changing the broadcast. Now, what AWS doesn't do in this situation is actually collect data from the fan. So this is a good example of probably more of a sponsorship that fits in the activation area and not a platform sponsorship because they're not collecting data. They're still just integrated into the experience of watching, and there's no input from the fan. So they're not learning from the fan. Instead, they're using this as a way to demonstrate their capabilities. When this gets to the point where a fan has to register or pay extra for this type of experience, then this moves into a platform sponsorship where AWS is learning about the Bundesliga fans. And then you all probably saw this during the bubble in the NBA. Microsoft went beyond obviously being a tablet or Surface provider to the coaching staff and getting the association of being seen on the sidelines or by the commentators. And they went further, and they obviously powered with Microsoft Teams these video walls. And unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we're getting used to seeing more and more of this. But this was an example of a technology platform partner that allowed all these people to register. They learned about their team affiliations, their fandom. They saw how long they stayed online and watched the game, and they learned a number of other things about them. So you can see the NBA and Microsoft getting closer and closer when it comes to collecting data about fans and learning how to change the format of the game as a result. So I wanted to give you a few of those examples. I wanted to also open it up to questions. I know you guys are running a little bit behind, so I'm happy to stop my presentation there and let you guys ask any questions that you may have. And I want to thank you again for having me.
Thank you, Josh. Once again, a great presentation. I used to say that to talk about sport marketing, sponsorship, it's easily to understand in English rather than in Portuguese. It's unbelievable, but how well you guys can organize the thoughts and the presentations. I have one very broad question for you. You've been producing a lot of knowledge. You've been leading a new pathway for the sport industry together with very well-known brands such as Coca-Cola and other properties like UFC. In general, what could be a top two shortcuts you would say to a Brazilian property that it's willing to change all over and begin a new pathway towards a content and a platform production?
I think when it comes to content production, just make sure that everything you do has a window for the fan to crawl into, meaning open the door. So do a survey that allows them to give you feedback. Do a contest that is designed not only to see how many people register for the contest, but is designed to learn something very important about the fan. I think so many times marketers are proud of the fact that they got 500 people to do something, 10,000 people to do something. But what did you learn? Right? And I think if you can key in on what you're designing the thing to do to learn is really important. So photo sharing is a great example. I'm sure tons of people you work with do photo contests. Submit your photo. But who's analyzing those photos and what were those photos about? And why did you collect those photos in the first place, right? What did you learn about the fan so that you can do your next campaign using that data to retarget those customers and do something else, sell them something, get them to teach you something else about them. This whole idea of collecting data isn't to just collect it once, it's to continue that conversation with them. Right. That's what Facebook does. That's what Pandora does. That's what Netflix does. They try to collect all this data so that they can continue to keep you engaged, and sports properties and brands need to keep up with that.
Oh, thank you. I have a real quick question from our audience, from Felipe. He asks, how do you see the use of tools such as eye tracking to improve the collection of data to use in different forms of sponsorship?
So eye tracking if I'm watching a digital screen or a television.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's absolutely going to be a trend going forward. What is certainly true is that the next generation will be more willing to share their data.
Hmm.
They're not as freaked out about privacy as us old people, and they will share data with you. So in Nielsen and Replicom's world, they have the households, right? The households say you can watch what I watch. They take the set-top box data and they know everything you click on, everything you watch. They opt into that. In fact, they get paid to do that. So it's not a stretch for me to think that somebody's going to say, yeah, you can put a camera on my screen. Most of our computers already come with them. Most of our smart
Hmm.
TVs, right? The smart TVs already come with them. And with those cameras, you can use optical recognition to see if I'm paying attention. And I think that metric is going to be huge. How many faces does the camera see? And are the faces looking at the screen when the ads are on or when the products and services are being promoted? That's really going to be a metric, I think, in the future.
Great. LP?
Yes,
And there's one
Josh.
company, just so you know, there's one company
Okay.
called TVision Insights. That you should all look if you're interested in that space. TVision Insights is a company in New York, I think, that's doing something like this. I'm sure there's many, but I do know about them, and I saw their demo, and it's very slick.
Okay,
Good.
thank you.
Josh, I have one question here, which are very connected with our main subject, that is collecting data. Yeah, and it's about a movement here in Brazil, a recently movement. I read for you. Recently in Brazil, we've seen interesting movements by important retail brands starting to act directly in the areas of media production and sports content in order to build their own audience platforms. The same movement has been attempted by the biggest clubs of Brazilian soccer and other local sports properties. Do you think that this intermediation in the sports media segment is a trend that will accelerate more and more?
I do. And I think the advent of as more people build OTT platforms, they're largely doing that to do two things. One is make sure that they can command value for their rights, right? So if a broadcaster doesn't want to pay them for their rights, they want to be able to go direct to the consumers and start their own subscription service. That is 100% the strategy for Man City, Real Madrid, FC Barcelona, others. They want to be able to say, if you're not paying us what we're worth, we'll take our toys and go somewhere else. And so in the US, you see some of the Major League Baseball clubs, the Chicago Cubs are starting their own television station. That is more and more becoming a opportunity to manage your own digital content, but also your own broadcast content. I think that's a trend that's going to continue.
Good.
Oh,
Please,
I
Rafael.
have I have a wrap up here regarding the retail company in Brazil that's going to the content, producing content. Um, is that the same case, Josh, in your opinion, of Amazon buying firstly the Thursday night NFL, uh, raising up from 1 million to 5 million in a bid process back 2 or 3 years ago, and now buying the same package for about $1 billion for the next years? The question is, it's not the social media guys who's going to buy big money for the rights in the future, but e-commerce people. Is that correct?
100. I mean, I believe it. Yes. Look at how Amazon can justify that, right? I talked about
Right.
attribution. If they can show that Prime members are spending more because of their association with the NFL, more power to them. I think what you're going to see is, and I don't know what the equivalent is in Brazil, but it's like one of those shopping channels, right? where everybody comes out with the new products and they show it and they're like, look at this, it's wonderful. That kind of thing. They're going to turn the NFL Thursday night game into a product showcase. I guarantee it. You're going to see it's going to be done well. It's going to be subtle, but they're going to be selling products. They're going to be selling jerseys. They're going to be selling all kinds of equipment, and they're going to be trying to get the moms and the dads who are so interested in their kids playing or doing something. They're going to be buying equipment. Everything you just said, Rafael, absolutely 100% true. It's so much better than a 30-second commercial.
Right. And they control the ROI or the ROO. Totally.
Yeah, they know what it is. They know, and they won't go to the NFL and ask them what it is because they'll know. And that changes the power structure, right? They know what it's worth more than the NFL knows what it's worth. Wow. Imagine that, right? They don't tell the NFL how many products they sell. Yeah, of course not.
They would pay $2 billion.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah. One very last question from my side. Sorry, LP. That's a curiosity. Looking at this movement, the turn power for other people. What would be, in your opinion, the future of traditional media in terms of sports?
Oh, that's big. That's a big question, Luis. Yeah.
Rafael and Josh, I just wanted a compliment for this question of Rafael. Which is, what do you think will be the role of these big tech companies like Amazon, Facebook, and Google in the sports industry in terms of acquisition rights and their presence in general? I think it's a good compliment.
It's a great question, and you're right. It does relate to what Rafael just asked. Look, they're not all the same. They're not all the same. So Amazon's going to do what Rafael just said. They're going to use sports to sell products and keep Prime memberships and do things like that. Facebook is probably going to do more of the conversation that happens around a live sporting event. And I bet you they don't pay a lot for rights because they don't need to have the video on their platform to do what they want to do, which is to have the conversation happen. They just need to get better at inviting people or being embedded in the live stream so that the conversation happens on Facebook.
Right.
So Facebook will do it from a community perspective. Amazon will do it from a product and e-commerce perspective. I think Microsoft and Google and Netflix, you see Netflix doing a lot of documentary content in sports now. Really real documentary stuff like high school sports or, women's sports or international sports. And I think they're just going to continue to do that because why would they pay so much money when they can drive viewership based on that kind of production? So don't let somebody come to you and say they're all the same, because they're not. They're all very interested in the sports media, business model, but they have very different uses for those products and services.
Yeah, and just to add what you said about Netflix, I just read something that F1, Formula One, is expecting to renew its fan base because of Netflix.
I believe it.
Series. It's incredible because they are doing well. They are planning this next season already. And just say, okay, we'll be around for more 2 years or some. And it's unbelievable how this is changing.
It really does open up their fan base too, right? It's like so different. Somebody who's going to sit down and watch a live race and somebody who wants to learn about the stories of the drivers. You had the Olympic, content on earlier. The Olympic content is about storytelling. It's not always about the spectacle, right? And there's a very big difference between seeing the spectacle live and hearing the story and learning about the athletes over time. And I think the F1 Netflix relationship is what you're referring to, which is there will be a lot of non-F1 fans who watch that.
Good.
Oh, I have one very last question, Josh. I don't know if I got it right, but Marcelo asks, what do you think will be the next step for the sport industry regarding uh, data multiple information. I think he's trying to say that uh, how can we put all together a lot of data coming from different sources? How can we process and get advantage from so much and dense information, Josh? What
Yeah.
would be the next move?
The next move is really to start asking the consumers for their data, right? I think that we've been shying away from this. We've been saying, oh, we don't collect your data. We don't want to
Right.
scare anybody. We don't collect your data. Be transparent. Say we are collecting your data. Give it to us. That will be the cleanest form of data you will get, which is like if the fans are actively saying, I am a volleyball fan. I want you to make volleyball better. Here's my information. Now go make it
Mhm.
better, right? Because they do have a vested interest. They are interested in making sure that the games they love and the athletes they love are supported. So, people are very passionate about sports. And if they're going to give their data to anybody, it's not the banks, it's not the retailers, it's going to be the sports companies. And to that extent, sports can catch up. They can catch up because they have a different relationship with the consumer.
Good.
Wow.
Very good point.
Luis?
Yes, I have one question here. Josh, we know it's very difficult to change the status quo of sports industry, especially in underdeveloped countries like us. But it's good to see how the two first panels, what we had, are very connected with your points. So for us, it's good to see what's happening in US, and it's better to see that we are thinking about that here and actually doing actionable things to change our market. But this question is today in USA, who are the players in the sports industry who are leading the construction of the new generation of sports sponsorship? Could you name some of the initiatives that show us some of the right directions to follow?
Yeah, so I'll start with one. I think I understood enough about Boali to see that they were doing food delivery, and
Yes.
food delivery requires that the consumer tell you where they live. They give you their payment information, and if you can do that a bunch of times, you'll know if they're ordering during the game, before the game, after the game. So Boali is kind of one of those brands like Uber in the US, Uber Eats is doing more and more sponsorship. So Uber Eats just did a whole deal with LAFC, Los Angeles Football Club. And so Uber Eats and Postmates are two food delivery services, and the sports team gets together with them because either they're going to send food to the home before the game, during the game, or after the game, and learning that behavior of when they're tailgating, right? Or whether they're inviting their friends over for a watch party. You'll get that information from a sponsorship like that, a food delivery service. And that's a result of the pandemic, but it's also, I think, a good example of what you just asked me, which is who's a club that's leading the way and what's an interesting new technology brand coming in that's not Google or Amazon or Facebook. Uber is one of them. I'd also point to PayPal.
Hmm.
PayPal and Venmo,
Naming rights.
yeah, the cashless things and the naming rights. So they just did something with the earthquakes, which is in their hometown, and that's all about you know QR codes, cashless payments, and you learn a lot when somebody's using an app like that on their phone. So I would say, look, those are two examples. There's lots of other ones, but you know, keep a look at every one of the new sponsorships that are coming out and see how data or technology is woven into the deal. Because these deals, the headline might say naming rights, jersey patch, signage, all that boring old stuff that we all still buy, but there's always some sort of data and technology component to it that weaves it together.
Josh, another thing that came up in my mind right now. Just say number. The percentage of the all data collected today in these deals, what's being used from sponsors? 30%, 85%? What's your guess?
It is most definitely below 25%.
Right.
Which is why there's such a great opportunity for the industry. I mean, if
Of course.
you know, it's all white space, it's all green field, it's all upside, because we do such a bad job today. The bar is very low. The bar is very low.
Yeah, we do this very bad job as well.
Good.
I assume
So
that.
we're all on the same. We're all on the same level playing field.
A lot of opportunities.
Yes. Yeah. It's a global opportunity for sure. It is.
Yes. Josh, can you name some sports properties in the US? Maybe some teams of NBA or other leagues that are we can see, and they are doing a really outstanding job in the sponsorship programs.
Yeah.
Just
So let me
to follow them.
Yeah. Let me do this. Top 25 most innovative sports teams. So we just launched this report, and I'll put it in the chat. That you guys can take a look at. You can download it and take a look at it. What we did was we looked at how these teams globally are doing what we're talking about, which is how are they diversifying their revenue and their products so that they're in a better position to collect data from their customers. So it's not all about sponsorship. Some of it's about, creating their own OTT channel, but a lot of it is about sponsorship and international sponsorship too. We gave a lot of credit to clubs that did international sponsorship so they could learn about their fans that weren't local. We thought that was really, really important because those are the most passionate fans. If they follow you and they can't come to the games, then there's some special relationship with them that means they're probably more valuable than your normal customer. So we look at the Golden State Warriors. We look at the Sacramento Kings in the NBA. The NBA has a lot of owners that come from technology companies. So they do things particularly well. The Rams, the LA Rams, the Los Angeles Rams are connected with Kroenke Sports and Entertainment. They own Arsenal. So they have a really good sort of network, and they're tied to an ownership group. Monumental Sports in Washington, D.C. Ted Leonsis, AOL executive, his son is very smart. They run a very, very tech-forward group of teams in hockey, with the Washington Capitals, in basketball. So there's a lot of opportunity to follow what those folks are doing as well.
Very good.
Good. Our team is saying that we are running out of time.
Giving us the hook.
Yeah, right. Sorry. I would stay here for 2 hours more or something. But from my side, Josh, once again, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Keep pushing us to share content. Who knows? We learned something to get things better down here as well. Thank you very much once again. To our audience, stay put, because we are going to come up with a new calendar for the next months. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much, Josh.
Thank you, guys. Always pleasure.
Thank you, Josh.
Bye, Luis.
Bye.